In the heart of Detroit, where broken streetlights flickered like dying fireflies, and sirens wailed more often than lullabies, a boy named Jayden Carter grew up. Jayden was just 16, a tall, lanky black teenager with skin the color of rich cocoa and eyes that carried both pain and brilliance. His childhood was ripped away when he was only 8 years old. His parents, working class, God-fearing people, died in a tragic car accident, leaving him and his younger sister alone. With no relatives willing to take them in, Jayden was placed in a crowded foster system, while his sister was sent miles away to another family. That separation scarred him more than anything else. Life in foster homes wasn't kind. Some houses smelled like stale cigarettes and anger, others like wealth, but coated in cold indifference. In nearly every home, Jayden felt the sting of being unwanted. He was too quiet, too dark-skinned, too different from the kids who were adopted quickly. White couples came in, smiled politely at him, then walked out with younger, lighter-skinned children. Every rejection carved deeper into his heart. But Jayden had one secret weapon, his mind. At night, when the world thought he was sleeping, Jayden would sit by the dusty window with an old, beaten-up laptop a social worker had given him years ago. Its keys stuck, the screen flickered, and the battery lasted barely an hour without being plugged in. But to Jayden, it was a gateway. He taught himself coding by watching YouTube tutorials in public libraries. He cracked puzzles most adults couldn't solve. And soon, he began dabbling in things society frowned upon, hacking. Not to steal or destroy, but to understand systems, to feel some kind of control in a life where he had none. By 14, Jayden could slip into networks most professionals would never dream of touching. He could trace, decode, reroute, all while sitting in the shadows of a foster home that barely gave him dinner. Yet, no one noticed. Teachers dismissed him as another troubled kid. Social workers labeled him a flight risk. Police eyed him suspiciously when he walked home late at night in his hoodie, clutching his laptop bag. In their eyes, he wasn't a genius. He was just another black kid destined for failure. And Jayden swallowed that pain, fueling his determination. One freezing December night, Jayden sat in his tiny foster room, shivering under a threadbare blanket. His foster parents hadn't paid the heating bill again. He pulled his laptop close, the blue light casting shadows on his face. As usual, he dove into coding challenges, but something unusual caught his eye. A strange encrypted message was bouncing across multiple servers, disguised under layers of fake data. Curiosity pulled him in. He followed the trail like a hunter. What he uncovered made his blood run cold. It was a cyberattack blueprint. Someone was planning to shut down the city's water supply system, targeting neighborhoods already struggling with poverty. If it succeeded, thousands of families, mostly black and brown, would be left without clean drinking water in the dead of winter. Jayden's heart pounded. This wasn't some online game. This was real. And the attackers were smart. Too smart. They had masked their identities, rerouted through servers across the globe, and set a ticking clock. The attack was scheduled to launch in 72 hours. He stared at the screen, trembling. He was just a kid, an orphan with no power, no resources. But he also knew this. If he didn't act, no one else would. The next morning, Jayden tried to warn someone. He walked into the local police precinct, clutching a printed copy of the code he had intercepted. His voice shook as he explained what he'd found. But the officer on duty, a white man in his 40s with a thick mustache, barely glanced at him. Instead, he smirked. "Kid, You expect me to believe you figured this out? What are you, some kind of gangster hacker? You probably stole this junk off the dark web. Jayden's chest tightened. He tried again, explaining the sequence, the timing, the catastrophic risk, but the officer waved him off. Go back to school, son. Stop playing superhero. We've got real work to do. When Jayden persisted, the officer grew irritated, calling over another cop. They whispered, chuckled, and finally told him to leave before they filed a report on him instead. He walked out of that station with tears burning his eyes. Not anger, at least not yet. Just the crushing reminder that to them, his skin and his hoodie defined him more than his mind ever could. Jayden had only one option left: fight back on his own. He skipped meals, barely slept, and spent the next 2 nights glued to his laptop. His foster parents didn't care. They barely noticed if he was home or not. He mapped the hackers' digital footprints, cracked open encrypted shells, and traced their origin. To his shock, the attack wasn't coming from some distant country. It was being orchestrated from within his own city by a group of white-collar activists who thought shutting down water to poor black neighborhoods would clean up the community. Racism wasn't just in whispers or stares anymore. It was weaponized, coded into lines of malicious software that could strip entire families of their most basic need. Jayden's chest burned with rage. He thought of his sister, wherever she was, and what would happen if her water was poisoned. He thought of the little kids in his block, the single mothers, the elderly, who already struggled. He couldn't let it happen. Jayden decided he wasn't just going to stop the attack. He was going to expose them. He carefully built a digital trap, a counterattack that would not only dismantle the hacker's system, but also trace their true identities. His fingers flew across the keys, his eyes bloodshot from exhaustion. He coded with fury, but also with precision. Every click, every line of code felt like reclaiming a piece of dignity that the world had tried to strip from him. By dawn, he was ready. He leaned back in his chair, his hands trembling. The clock was ticking. Less than 48 hours remained before the scheduled attack. And Jayden, the orphan nobody wanted, the black kid nobody believed in, was about to stand between his city and catastrophe. But little did he know, his fight would uncover secrets far darker than a water hack. Secrets that involved powerful names in the city, including people who had dismissed him his whole life. For the first time, Jayden wasn't just surviving. He was about to make the world listen. Jayden barely slept. His eyes burned red, his fingers numb from hours of typing. The glow of his old laptop lit up his room, flickering as though it was struggling to keep up with his determination. The attack was less than 2 days away, and he could feel the weight of the entire city on his shoulders. But he wasn't just fighting against time. He was fighting against a system that had already written him off. He knew that even if he exposed the attack, people wouldn't believe that he had been the one to stop it. After all, to the world, he was just a black foster kid with nothing to his name. And that thought only pushed him harder. Jayden's screen filled with scrolling code, IP addresses, and firewall defenses. He had slipped into the hacker system before, but this time, they knew someone was watching. His intrusion set off alarms within their network. Suddenly, his screen flashed, trace detected. Jayden's pulse spiked. They were trying to find him, to hunt him down digitally, and if they succeeded, they could pin the entire attack on him. He pictured the headlines. Black teen hacker arrested in cyberattack. The thought made him sick. He launched countermeasures, bouncing his own signal through dozens of servers across the globe. His fingers flew like lightning, sweat dripping down his forehead. For every wall they built, he tore it down. For every trap they set, he dodged it. It was a war, and his keyboard was the battlefield. After hours of back and forth, Jayden finally broke through their defenses. What he uncovered made his stomach drop. The hackers weren't some random group of bored teenagers or distant criminals. They were corporate mercenaries, hired under the table by a group of powerful businessmen in Detroit. And the face that appeared at the top of the encrypted chain made Jayden freeze in shock. It was Councilman Richard Hale, a wealthy, white politician who had built his career by talking about revitalizing neighborhoods. Jayden knew what that really meant, pushing out poor black families and replacing them with luxury condos and businesses. The cyberattack wasn't random. It was strategic. By cutting off clean water to black neighborhoods, Hale and his backers could drive families out, force them to sell their homes for cheap, and then sweep in to rebuild. It wasn't just racism, it was greed dressed up as policy. Jayden's fists clenched, the man smiling in campaign ads, shaking hands with city leaders, was planning to poison thousands of lives just to get richer. And now, Jayden had the proof. Jayden knew he couldn't keep this secret to himself. He packaged the evidence, screenshots and digital trails into a folder, and tried to send it anonymously to local journalists. But within an hour, his email account was shut down. His internet connection slowed to a crawl. Someone powerful was watching. The next day, Jayden went back to the police precinct, determined to try again. He demanded to see a detective this time, clutching his folder like it was his lifeline. But when he explained what he had found, the detective sneered. "You expect us to believe you hacked into government systems? That's a crime, son. Do you know what you're admitting to?" Jayden's throat went dry. "I'm not the criminal. Councilman Hale, he's behind it. The detective cut him off with a laugh. "Councilman Hale is a respected leader. You're just another foster kid with a laptop. You should be grateful we don't lock you up for what you're claiming." Jayden walked out, heart shattered. It wasn't just that they didn't believe him. They didn't want to believe him. Protecting a white politician was easier than listening to a black teenager. That night, Jayden sat in the library, staring at his laptop. His hands trembled, but not from fear, from rage. Every door had been slammed in his face. Every authority figure had chosen racism over truth. If the system wouldn't save his people, then he would. Alone, he dove back into the network, not just to stop the attack, but to expose Hale and his entire circle to the world. He built a program that would automatically leak every file, every incriminating email, and every financial record tied to the attack. All it needed was the right trigger. But the hackers had tightened their defenses. Jayden's laptop overheated, the fan screaming, the screen flickering. Still, he pushed forward, whispering to himself, "Come on, just a little more." And then something unexpected happened. Just as the hackers closed in, another signal appeared on Jayden's screen. A new user had entered the battlefield, fighting back against the mercenaries with skills as sharp as his own. Firewalls crumbled, traps were dismantled, and for the first time, Jayden wasn't fighting alone. His heart raced. Who was this mystery ally? After an hour of coordinated attacks, the hackers retreated, their system temporarily disabled. Jayden slumped back in his chair, drenched in sweat. His laptop pinged with a single encrypted message from the stranger. "You're not alone. Keep fighting. They'll get what they deserve." No name, no trace, just a lifeline. For the first time, Jayden felt hope. The clock was down to 12 hours before the scheduled cyberattack. Jayden knew the final battle was coming. He had the evidence, he had the program, and now he had an ally. But Hale and his men weren't going to give up easily. They had money, power, and an entire system willing to protect them. And Jayden? He was just one black kid with an old laptop. But he also had something Hale didn't: the truth. He cracked his knuckles, refreshed his code, and prepared for the fight of his life. The fate of thousands rested on his shoulders. And if he succeeded, he wouldn't just save lives. He'd expose the rot at the heart of the city. But if he failed, he knew exactly what would happen. He'd be branded a criminal, thrown into a cell, and forgotten. Either way, his story was about to change forever. The city slept, unaware of the disaster looming just hours away. Jayden sat hunched over his flickering laptop, every muscle in his body tense. His room was silent, except for the soft hum of the fan and the frantic clatter of keys. The countdown timer he had discovered in the hacker's system blinked on his screen. 11 hours, 47 minutes. Jayden's chest tightened. Thousands of lives could be destroyed if he failed. He thought of the foster kids he grew up with, the families in his neighborhood, and the children drinking from already rusty pipes. This wasn't just code on a screen. It was survival. And that was something Councilman Richard Hale and his wealthy backers would never understand. Across town, Hale sat in his luxury penthouse, sipping on expensive scotch. He looked out at the city lights like a king surveying his kingdom. His men updated him on the cyberattack plan, assuring him everything was on track. By tomorrow night, Hale said with a smirk, those neighborhoods will be begging to sell their homes for pennies, and I'll be the savior who rebuilds. No remorse, no hesitation, just greed, and the quiet confidence that nobody would dare expose him, especially not some black foster kid with no power, no voice. Back in his room, Jayden's laptop pinged. The mysterious ally had returned. This time, instead of cryptic encouragement, they sent a direct request. Open channel, we need to talk. Jayden hesitated, but curiosity won. He allowed a secure voice link to connect. A voice crackled through his headphones. It was calm, steady, and unmistakably female. Jayden, you don't know me, but I know you. My name is Dr. Maya Reynolds. I'm a cybersecurity analyst for the federal government. Jayden froze. A government agent? I've been tracking Hale's mercenaries for months, she continued. But I couldn't get past their defenses alone. Then I saw you. The way you fought them, the way you broke through, I knew you weren't just some random kid. You're the only reason we have a chance. Jayden's throat tightened. For the first time, someone powerful wasn't dismissing him, wasn't laughing at him. She believed in him. But Maya's voice turned grim. We need to act together. If we miss this window, Hale wins. And the city suffers. The clock ticked past midnight. Jayden and Maya launched their coordinated attack, slipping into the hacker's system like shadows. Firewalls burst apart under their combined force, code collapsing like dominoes. The mercenaries fought back viciously, throwing wave after wave of counterattacks. But Jayden had never felt stronger. With Maya by his side, his keystrokes were faster, sharper, unstoppable. Sweat drenched his back as he typed, the room spinning with adrenaline. His screen filled with lines of code, alarms blaring, warning lights flashing. It felt less like typing and more like combat. Every second mattered. And then, Jayden spotted it. The master control switch for the cyberattack. One press would unleash poisoned water into thousands of homes. Another press could dismantle the entire operation. But before he could act, the screen flashed red. Locked. Authorization required. In his penthouse, Hale leaned back in his chair, watching the digital war play out. He smirked when he saw the locked message. "Let them try," he said coolly. "They'll never crack my authorization code." His men chuckled, confident that their boss's fortress of digital power was impenetrable. But Hale underestimated one thing: Jayden's determination. Jayden's fingers flew, analyzing the encrypted lock. It wasn't just a password. It was a biometric key tied directly to Hale's personal devices. Breaking it seemed impossible. Jayden's vision blurred, exhaustion hitting him like a wall. But Maya's voice steadied him. "You've already done more than anyone thought possible," she said softly. "Don't give up now." Jayden thought of his mother. Though she wasn't his biological mom, he thought of the kind foster mothers who had tried, the kids who looked up to him, the community that nobody cared about. He wasn't just hacking for himself, he was hacking for them. He took a deep breath, launched one final script, and tied it to the program he had built earlier, the auto leak. If he couldn't shut down the attack in time, his system would still broadcast Hale's crimes across every major news network in the country. It was all or nothing. The minutes ticked away. With less than 5 minutes left, Jayden's code finally broke through. The lock shattered, and the master switch glowed on his screen. His hands trembled as he hit the key. The cyberattack collapsed. Pipes stayed clean. Families stayed safe. The city breathed easy, never knowing how close they had come to disaster. But that wasn't all. Jayden's auto leak triggered instantly. Screens across the country, news outlets, websites, even social media exploded with files tying Hale and his men to the planned attack. Emails, contracts, secret payments, proof too solid to ignore. Councilman Richard Hale's smug grin vanished when his phone lit up with alerts. His empire was burning before his eyes. Within hours, federal agents stormed his penthouse, dragging him away in handcuffs. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted, and the same city Hale tried to poison watched him fall from power. Jayden sat quietly in the library, staring at the news headlines. Councilman Hale arrested in cyber terror plot. His heart swelled with relief, but there was something more. For once, his name wasn't being dragged through the mud. People were asking, who was the mysterious hacker who saved the city? Maya called him later that night. Her voice was warm with gratitude. "Jayden, you're a hero. What you did tonight, it saved thousands. And I promise, this time, the world will know your story." Jayden's eyes filled with tears. For the first time, he wasn't invisible. He wasn't just some black kid. He was the one who fought back, the one who exposed the truth, the one who proved them all wrong. The city celebrated Hale's downfall, but for Jayden, the real victory was deeper. He had faced a system built to silence him, a world that doubted him, and he had still found a way to rise. Racism, greed, and corruption had tried to crush him, but with courage, resilience, and the belief that justice mattered, he had turned the tables. And in the end, the orphan kid with nothing had saved everything.